First meeting of the Township Committee, September 8, 2015. The notice requirements provided for in the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied. Notice of this meeting was properly given by transmission to the Star Ledger, the Independent, and the Trooper Times, and by posting at the Middletown Township Municipal Building, and filing with the Township Clerk on January 9, 2015. Committeeman Fiore.
Here.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Massell.
Here.
Mayor Murray. Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Get the game on.
Sorry, I don't know how to work that. At this time, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence to honor the troop service worldwide, defending our freedoms, constitutions, and way of life. Thank you. On tonight's agenda, we have no action items. Our first public hearing for Ordinance 2015-3148, an ordinance authorizing update the list of authorized street names.
Is there anyone wishing to speak to 2015-3148? Seeing no members of the public wishing to speak to 2015-3148, I move to close the public hearing and adopt.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Massell.
Yes.
Mayor Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on second and final reading. Our next public hearing on Ordinance 2015-3149, an ordinance authorizing Title 39 provisions at Bayshore Village, LLC.
Is there anyone wishing to speak to 2015-3149? Seeing no members of the public wishing to speak to 2015-3149, I move to close the public hearing and adopt.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Massell.
Yes.
Mayor Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on second and final reading. Our next public hearing on Ordinance 2015-3150, an ordinance amending Chapter 127-23I of the Code of the Township of Middletown governing fees for the Registrar of Vital Statistics.
Is there anyone wishing to speak to 2015-3150? Seeing no members of the public wishing to speak to 2015-3150, I move to close public portion and adopt.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Massell.
Yes.
Mayor Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on second and final reading. We have public hearing on Ordinance 2015-3151, an ordinance establishing fee schedule for passport-related applications.
Is there anyone wishing to speak to 2015-3151? Seeing, yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Don Watson, living at 1 Collinson Drive. I was just wondering, is this the same type of service that the county provides in applying for passports?
Yes.
Like if we submit an application here, it still has to go to Philadelphia?
Right, Heidi, too.
Yes. Yes, it's the same process as the county does.
All right, I was
It's
just
closer to home.
curious about that. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay, we move to close the public hearing on 2015-3151 and adopt.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Massell.
Yes.
Mayor Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on second and final reading. We have introduction on Ordinance 2015-3152, an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Middletown amending Chapter 127 fees for Forest and Park.
Motion to introduce.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Massell.
Yes.
Mayor Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries to pass this ordinance on first reading with a public hearing to be held the first meeting in October. So we had an issue with publication because of the holiday.
Okay.
We have Resolution 15-229, a resolution authorizing payment of bills, September 8, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Massell.
Yes.
Mayor Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt Resolution 15-229. At this time, I'd like to ask the Township Committee to adopt a consent agenda, which would include Resolutions 15-230 through 15-237.
So moved.
Second. Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Michelle.
Yes.
Mayor Murray.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Motion carries to adopt the consent agenda. At this time, we have Township Committee acting as the ABC issuing authority. At this time, I'd also like the Township Committee to adopt the consent agenda for resolutions 15-238 through 15-242.
So moved.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore.
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Michelle.
Yes.
Mayor Murray.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt the consent agenda. Agenda items for September 21st, 2015. We'll have certificates of appreciation and proclamations. First one we have is a presentation for the New Jersey American Water Grant, Horseshoe Park, for the Murray Pond Embankment Stabilization Project. And we'll have a proclamation declaring September 26, 2015 as Middletown Day. We'll have approval of minutes. So far we have August 2015. Public hearing of proposed ordinances. Introduction of proposed ordinances. And consent agenda, resolutions, bingo raffles, and volunteer firefighter applications. For discussion for tonight, we have ordinance amending planning and development regulations for porches and various amendments.
Want to go
Yes.
through some of those?
Definitely. So the master plan the master plan in its past iterations has recommended creating incentives to have high quality development and also more specifically, along highway districts to have high quality and financial businesses which act as anchors. And currently there are certain businesses along 35 and 36 which are with vacant storefronts. So it has been in order to create spur activity and to avoid the cumbersome process of going through the site plan review, we have in our ordinance an exempt development section which exempts certain type of development from the site plan review process. So what we are recommending is to have certain modifications to permit certain non-residential additions or like infill developments to shopping centers or offices, provided it's within an existing disturbed area, and like setting a percentage. So we could do it administratively and approve it. So that's one of our recommendations. The
This is
second,
on previous developed property.
yes. So
Okay.
basically there are certain properties which have pockets to the back, which we could infill, and they don't have to go before the board, because currently the way the ordinance reads, anything greater than 1,000 square foot requires a site plan review. So we studied all the shopping centers, and we want to be fair, so we want to keep, the purposes of zoning and master plan, but at the same time give incentives and have some flexibility.
Business friendly.
Yeah, to be, absolutely, that's one. Then the other thing, there are only interior alterations currently don't require site plan approval, so we're recommending as long as there's no increase in terms of square footage, and if there's small additions like just raising this roof. So if somebody has like an attic space and they just want to raise the roof, and make the facade look pretty, so it's create a better visual environment. So that's a second.
That example, just so, I don't know, some of you were at the meeting we had where freeholder Arnone set up the meeting, I think it was at the Art Center.
It was Grow Monmouth.
Grow Monmouth. One of the concerns we had was there was a business who wanted to just raise the height of their building. They weren't adding any square footage, they just wanted to raise the roof to make it architecturally look better. And basically a bigger attic would have been inside, but outside it would look like a two-story building, but still really just one story. Currently in our ordinance, you couldn't do that. So we're trying to say, well, if you're just doing it for aesthetic purposes and you're not adding gross floor area, why should you not be allowed to do that? And so that will make that. And the first part, just as a reminder about the shopping center, we have a meeting next week with the Economic Development Committee to talk about some of these changes too, to get their input on some of these shopping centers and how to incentivize them to maybe do some renovations. That's one of the ways we've thought about doing, I think, and Jerry Scharfenberger's been kind of working with us on that.
So, and even small things like some non-residential businesses want to put in storage sheds, then they have to come before the board. So we thought if we said, something, like say 200 square feet or smaller, we could do it administratively, but, work to make it more, I beg your pardon?
No,
No, it's
Brian was making a funny.
about a current issue we have about something. So.
Okay, so we want to work to see that if it's compatible in terms of you can't just put in a storage shed, but even just to make all the different sections of the ordinance relate to one another and not have any contradictions. So those are the three things we were thinking of. Then the other thing we've noticed with the zoning board has been that we're getting existing steps and landings and which they need to roof it, not enclose, but just put a roof, like porches. So they encroach into the front yard, and what the zoning board had recommended in their 2014 report to amend the ordinance to allow certain encroachments into the front yard. So we're working, if we recommend creating ordinance standards, and our department can work to prepare one if you guys.
Yeah, I think so.
And then the other thing we've been noticing is of late, just the past 2-3 months, we're getting this few people, citizens or business owners wanting to put in murals, and we have sign ordinance, but murals need to be regulated in terms of creating a better visual environment, and should they be considered a sign, then what would be a sign, what would not be a mural, and there are certain towns that regulate that. So we just thought we'd bring it to your attention that this is something we've been noticing the past maybe 2-3 months.
Is the differential that a sign is looking to identify or sell something, and a mural
is more aesthetic,
It's
like, correct. Like for example, I'm not stating that as an example, but just to give you an idea, like there's certain towns they have one wall which probably has some artwork, which is aesthetically and visually pleasing. Now again, aesthetic is it's very subjective, but it would be a great idea to have standards in place, more from a design perspective, what we would consider.
The difficulty we're running into is that there have been some people just do them, and they don't ask, they just paint them. And we don't really do anything about it, but then other people ask, and they say, well, can I paint a mural on the side of my building? I have a big blank wall, can I paint a mural? And technically, if you ask the zoning office, they'll say, well, no, because we're going to consider it a sign. And I would consider it a sign if it sends a message that tells you what business is there and they're trying to promote their business, it's a sign. But if it's just art, the classic example is if you drive down through Shrewsbury Avenue in Red Bank, you see that wall with the guy who's up on the ladder painting. It's really kind of nice. And it doesn't identify the business in any way. But should we say no if somebody wants to do that? And that's what where we're at.
We talked a little bit about this today. Tell me very specifically what ordinance we have now that governs whether or not somebody does something profane, or, there's already a mechanism in place,
We
right?
have
If
provisions in
somebody were
our
to paint
ordinance
something,
that prohibit things that are obscene and profanities, things like that are visible. We have that in our ordinance, and all ordinances have things like that, and to a certain degree they're defendable. There's obviously certain words and images that you can't display publicly, and you'd win that one. But if someone wanted to paint something that someone might find inappropriate or offensive, but others wouldn't, you really can't regulate that.
the problem that you run into is a similar problem with regard to an architectural review board or an ARB, in which case you're starting to dictate roof slopes, colors, facade types, things of that nature, which are challengeable, and you don't see them that often. So, if you're going to start to regulate murals as non-signs, then I think you have to set up some standards that are difficult to challenge, which means they have to be fairly broad-based.
Oh, no, absolutely, but this was something we wanted to bring to your attention. We haven't,
Should we, well, the question right now is, should we say no when people ask to do them? And
My
answer
first
is-
answer, I don't know. You're gonna make, I don't know, you're still going.
Yeah, you go
Go ahead.
I mean,
It's
look,
difficult.
I think if you're going to allow murals, it's so subjective. And somebody's taste, a neighborhood's taste, it's subjective, and you have no oversight to Committee Senator Riddle's point to say what's, you know, what you can and can't do so long as it's a permitted use. I mean, look, you can someone can be a rabid Giants fan and throw a huge mural of the Giants, and the next door, you know, neighborhood could be like, well, we hate the Giants. I mean, it's just, I'm using that as just a silly example, but, you know, graffiti is artistic to certain people. It may not be artistic to a neighborhood, and you're going to get this huge wall, seawall perspective in Port Monmouth at some point. What if someone wants to come in and, oh, I'd love to paint, you know, I just think it sets a bad precedent. I don't agree with it. I think it's just gonna cause neighborhood
And I
strife.
don't want to be in the business of regulating
Right.
what people can and cannot paint on their
But so the
property.
question then becomes, we have some already, one was just recently done on Highway 36, I think it's a house lifting business or something like that, and they painted some image on the side of the building that shows that. We have probably a dozen or so around town that have just been done incrementally over the years. Some are actual signs, some are just artistic, you know, nothing that's offensive anywhere. And the question becomes, when one pops up next week, do we want to do anything about it, or do we just kind of let, as long as it's not a true sign, if it's truly a sign, our ordinances cover that. We can say that's a sign, you know, you're identifying the name of the business, the
What
type of
about the
business.
historic districts? They're
Historic,
covered, right?
anything on the exterior of a building in the historic district has to go to the Landmarks Commission anyway, so that's
Absolutely.
already regulated.
Okay, they're covered, to check that.
But
To
I'd
make
say, you know,
sure.
with regard to, your question is, when the question is posed.
Yeah.
To the municipality, what do we tell them?
Mhm.
And your answer is, you give them the sign ordinance and say, this is what
you can't do.
you can't do.
Mhm.
And that's your answer.
Then people will paint murals. That's what's gonna happen.
And just as long as it doesn't become a sign.
Look, I think
That's,
but
That's
then,
one way to do it.
but then one needs to clarify
But
that.
you can't do it, can you do it in a
No words.
commercial zone, in
Just
a
words.
No words.
residential zone? Can you do it
No
at a
words or
certain
numbers,
size?
you know?
Can it be lit, can it be?
Look, if it looks like a sign, it smells like a sign, it's got sign language, it's a sign, right? So you can't describe what a non-sign is.
there's a famous case that goes back years and years ago, one of the original sign ordinance cases, and went to the Supreme Court, I think, and it was like a shoe store, and they put a statue of a shoe on the roof of the building. It's not a sign, well, the court said, well, that's a sign. It's a shoe store, and you've got a giant shoe on the building, that's a sign. You know, so if you have a fish store and there's a giant fish on the side of the building, that's a sign. But as long as it's not specifically identifying the businesses that's there, you know, that, you could look at it, that as long as it's not truly a sign with words, numbers, right, anything that identifies the business, if it's just a piece of art, I'm not so sure you actually can prohibit it, frankly. 'Cause it's just like architectural
You can,
standards.
well, you can't, one thing that you clearly can't do is regulate content. So
Unless it's obscene.
you can,
You
even
say
that
no.
can be difficult. So you can say none in a residential zone, you can say that. You can't paint the side of your house in a residential zone with the Giants, you know, logo or something like that. And, you know, I think that would be something that we could regulate. It might be an issue, but I think there would be a rational basis for that. You know, but you can restrict size, you can restrict illumination, you can restrict, there are standards that are objective standards that can be incorporated into the code if they're not already there in part, or maybe strengthened to a certain degree. Commercial speech is distinguishable to a certain extent from other personal, private speech, and that, with respect to the commercial entities, and generally speaking, a commercial entity's not gonna put something on there, some sort of mural on there unless it's for an advertising purpose, but it still could be considered a sign if it's something used to attract attention. Like just the circus clown, for example, is the one that's a pre-existing thing, but something like that where people might identify
So
with the
what would
business.
happen if Ice World were to put
Giant
big,
skate.
huge pictures of painted hockey players on the sign?
That's
Not a
a
sign?
sign.
It
Yeah,
is a
that's a
sign.
sign,
It's
yeah.
like-
Because it identifies the use.
Yeah.
And there are,
And that's why we were recommending, we haven't looked into it in detail, but we had someone call our office a week ago, but, so to just look into it further to see, because, yes, you can take away a person's creative freedom, if you will, but
But you
at the
can say
same
no
time.
murals.
yes, you
sorry.
can say no
You
murals.
can say no
And they
murals.
just had this issue in Red Bank, the Anderson building in Red Bank across from the
I
train
was just thinking
station,
about that.
where they had boarded up, windows, an old brick building there, it's an old like brick kind of factory building, across the street from the train station, kind of by John Bon Jovi's Soul Kitchen there, and they had some graffiti type artists from Brooklyn came in, and they, thought they were doing the neighborhood a favor and having her do this, her artwork on the building there, which, based on press reports, at least initially, they told them to take down, and then the city, Red Bank decided to let them keep up after some discussion about it. Some people found it, architecturally, aesthetically pleasing, others, of course, didn't like it, and it didn't advertise for the building or what's potentially going in there or anything like that. It was purely art to a degree, and in the eyes of the beholder, but there was, but this was the precise issue that came up, in that they determined ultimately that it wasn't governed by the sign ordinance, because it wasn't advertising for anything in relation to what was going in there necessarily, but certainly attracted attention to the.
My fear, I know the exact mural you're talking
Yeah.
about, and I pass it every day, and, personally, it's not my taste, I don't care for it. And my fear is that, if you start a trend, if we do allow it, it's gonna be, up and down 35 and 36, they wanna start doing murals. But, the one in Red Bank, I think, is unpleasant to, I don't care for it, but that's my opinion. But, does that mean that they can do that in every other building there, now that they've approved that?
Because they don't have an ordinance about it.
Is there precedence for this anywhere else in the county or
I'm gonna have
here?
to do some research, just saying it's not something I've looked at prior to this meeting, but I mean.
So can you do a
There's
little,
certain-
can you do a
yeah,
little
certain-
legal
yeah.
background of what our options are as to?
Because the thing we need to decide also is what we're going to do about the existing ones. They pop up every couple weeks now, you'll see a new one. They're becoming like very trendy. I think artists
Well,
are going
that's
around
my
selling,
fear, and
selling
That's-
the,
and that
then-
is- Right.
selling the service for low cost to get themselves just some recognition. And look, some of them can be really, really nice too. And
I've seen
probably
some
can enhance
around town,
buildings.
and they're not terrible, but that's just what I have seen. I don't know, like you said, you open up the
Could-
door,
yeah.
you don't know.
if we tomorrow set code enforcement out and said to everybody, you have to paint over the mural you have on the side of your building, we'll hear about that. That'll be a discussion. They're not going to do it. They're not just going to do it because we say so.
But can we just go back to one thing you said, Brian? You said, when we were talking about if the content was obscene or something like that, you mentioned maybe we don't exactly have the control that we have. I mean, what do you mean by that?
It's very difficult. I mean, it would have to be an extraordinary circumstance where, there are cases where something to one person may be obscene, may not be obscene to another person. There are circumstances where that can be difficult, because whenever you're dealing with content,
We have a pretty,
there's.
Because I would
No,
not
we just
want
it's
to
pretty
witness a
specific.
regular
Yeah, there are
something
specific, yeah, I
like
mean,
that.
we have a very
There are-
specific
Tacitly
definition.
When
of
somebody
ordinance.
put a pornographic image, for example, and that, you're gonna be a safe, ground, but there are things that, fall within a gray area that are more difficult. Whenever you're getting into content, it is extraordinarily difficult, and obviously when it's, artistic content, it can be really difficult as to, is a a drawing of, a statue from, a
Or
Greek
like the
statue
David or something like
yeah.
that, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
If you wanna put a swastika.
some people may,
Right.
well, that's
Or
something that arguably you would have a
worse.
problem with, there's a
Right.
lot of cases and things like that.
It'd be difficult.
So, where somebody's expressing a political viewpoint or something of that nature,
See, I would not want to tacitly approve anything because we can't do anything about something if it really is very, something very objectionable, but, I don't know, I'd be very scared to regulate, so,
You don't
you
want
know,
residents
you either
just to
don't
say,
do it at all, or,
Is it up and down 35 and 36 only, is that what we're talking about?
Primarily, we got, we have,
What would
we
be in a
have,
business
we have one in
zone
Campbell's
only,
Junction, and we have somebody else in Campbell's Junction who wants to do one.
but only in business zones, right?
Yeah, they're only in business.
Yes,
zones.
commercial.
I think there's a look, just again, being in real estate, someone comes to the town, 35, 36, Junction, Lincroft, that's advertising the town to me. They come here and if it's pleasant or unpleasant, it's just gonna give a feel that is not gonna be welcoming to the town, and I just,
What if somebody wants to put a volcano, picture in the middle of the junction? It's gonna look silly, but that might be what they want, just put it, I don't know, I just think, to your point, I think the town, those are reflections of the town, and
it is.
I
I think it'll hurt.
you
know,
taking
real
a
estate.
chance with people's taste.
Yeah.
All right, we'll do some research and see if there's any cases that give us any guidance on it. It is becoming an issue.
See what's going on.
Can we, is anyone taking photos, or do we, the ones that are there, can we see them?
We have the
We
one,
have one photo, which is, there's the house lift or something.
that's on Route 36.
What's that?
It's an act,
Yes, and
That's
that's a
clearly a
sign,
sign.
that's clearly a sign that's painted on it.
it's a train, I mean, it's.
But that really triggered off this, that,
They
to
got a pizza
have
place that also.
clarification in
Chick-fil-A
terms
has
of,
one.
that would be a sign
There's
not to
clearly a
do.
sign.
We have to amend it in the budget.
Right.
And then how do we control it,
That's,
So,
that's what gets to me.
and so we are actually researching to see what other towns are doing to get a better idea. But we wanted to put this in right away, not waste any time.
Because the artist who did that right now is gonna go to every other business and say, hey, look, I can do this for your business.
I agree.
And, I can do
Well,
it for.
especially when you don't have an electronic messaging restriction.
You have to change the mural every 5 minutes.
You may want to do that.
All right, so we have something to think about.
There's one other.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So the other thing too, which, we have kennels, which we use the state definition under animals. But in terms of, just things to think about, to have more standards in terms of noise and outdoor, we don't have anything controlling, outdoor areas for animals and
In
kennels.
retail
Could I
spots.
just ask that we
Yes.
stop this component of this conversation,
Okay.
because ongoing litigation?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right, we'll talk about that one later.
Thanks, Sam. Good stuff. Lot to think about.
Okay, for purchasing, we have line striping.
Yeah, this is our annual line striping, which is advertised and out of bid. Hopefully by next meeting I'll have a recommendation for award or rejection.
The next thing?
Crossville, yeah, the county's gonna do that actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, right.
But I'll talk to them, that's a good point, I'll talk to them.
Everything's ready.
3 years in the making.
It's ready, yeah. We'll gladly do it if they receive pay.
And a revision to contract for tree services.
This is just an expansion of the not to exceed number for the tree service contract, just in case we have a rough fall here. We're getting kind of close with that number, so we will make
Doesn't
sure.
feel like it with 95 degrees today.
Yeah, hopefully we won't need it, but it's good to have it if we do.
Farm's almanac, so it's gonna be a rough winter.
I keep hearing that, I'm trying to ignore that.
El Nino says otherwise.
Yeah, I'm hoping El Nino's right.
We're going to El Nino.
And then we have the recycling materials.
This is for the resale of the materials or the marketing of the materials from Kane's Lane. With the end of our last contract, continue with the same vendor. We've had some issues with performance, and a while back we asked our recycling consultant, our recycling consultant, which is Wayne DeFeo here.
Hello.
Is our newest recycling coordinator and our consultant. We asked him to prepare some specifications for receiving proposals for purchasing this material and getting it to an end use for these commodities. He produced a very tight and very extensive document for us that went out to get some prices for these commodities. And these are commodities just like any other, pre-consumer commodity like gold or pork bellies or whatever. They're affected by the markets, and they go up and down, and this is a very volatile section of the market. You think we're kind of insulated here in Middletown, but the Chinese economy and the stock market affects this because most of our materials come to China. And oil prices, low oil prices affect this, because Wayne just told me tonight that it's cheaper to actually use virgin oil now instead of recycled plastic to produce new plastic. And that obviously is going to send these prices down even further than they came back here on this sheet here. So we had it broken down into a couple different sections. If you could see the core materials we get rid of are the mixed paper, the cardboard, the co-mingled material that people bring to Kane's Lane, the rigid plastics, which is a new service we provided. We accept rigid plastics and coolers and Rubbermaid items, basketball, kids' toys and things like that. We accept now. And then single stream, we don't really accept at Kane's Lane, but occasionally we collect it around town and bring it back to Kane's Lane, and then we have to market that as well. Usually the fiber, the mixed paper, cardboard have been positive numbers, but again, since the Chinese market has gone down, those numbers have come down. We used to have a floor price of, this is years ago now, 5 years ago, $40 a ton for cardboard. Now we're down to well below that, and our last contract 3 years ago had $10 a ton floor price. So it's a downward trend for sure, and the numbers we got back here were mostly affected by transportation and carting fees. That you have a container full of commingled, and they might say, okay, we'll take that away for free, but now we're going to come get it from you. It's going to cost you $250 to take that container away, which there's even our profit on some of the other ones for the mixed paper. We lose that. So Wayne had a good spec set up and good criteria where we had a scoring system for each vendor that submitted a bid or a proposal actually. We had a small committee in town that graded those proposals. And where we ended up was, I'm recommending and Wayne's recommending that we actually use our DPW trucks and our personnel to deliver these to the facility in Neptune, Asbury Park area. It's fairly close. And it,
Is that Atlantic Coast?
Atlantic Coast, yeah, it's
Is it Falls now, or is it
they're down in the facility now, in Ten Falls, right, yeah, they're actually,
that's reclamation center?
Right, they're at the
They're running their, yeah.
see, Atlantic Coast Fiber is
It
also,
used to be,
they take our material from our curbside collection as well, our single stream, on another contract, so they used to be in the Neptune area, but they're actually working out of the Montgomery County landfill now. So it's a fairly straight shot from here. It's going to put us back in the positive area at the end of the day. And that's what we're
Is that
recommending.
how you come to the net revenue? Explain how you come to the net revenue.
Right, the net revenue is basically the light blue 2 columns on the top grid gives us a $65,000 revenue, positive revenue once you balance them out. This is with us taking our roll-off truck and taking the material to the site. Now, that's $65,000, and then we also have the scrap metal goods, which is fairly simple. Red Bank Recycling came back with a higher price. They're closer it's a logical choice to use them.
What's the 65 plus 18?
65 plus 18 gives us the 83, and it's approximately $23,000 in salaries and fuel and things like that to get the materials to the site. You know, we are trying to even bring that number down. We purchased some compactors where we compact the material and things like that.
But we're netting,
But at least we're in the positive
right,
ground, and this market is
right, that's good.
good to achieve. Now, I know a little bit about this. Wayne is the expert in this. This is his life. Recycling. If you have any
I'm
questions
sure
about
there's more to it
anything.
than that.
No, it's
My
that's
life
all.
for
If
me.
you have any questions for Wayne,
more
just,
to it.
you know.
So not specific to the Keynes Lane recycling, I think it's pretty straightforward. We have a good handle on what we collect and what we're sending out, tonnage and things of that nature. But as an update to single stream recycling, one of the things that we had battered around back in 2011 or whenever we brought out single stream recycling was we were going to see how it was going, and obviously I think the tonnage, I would expect, continues to go up. So any insight as to our year over year, and you don't have to have it for this meeting, maybe for the next meeting or the next time next workshop, any insight you could provide as to where that trend is going and what that impact is for us from that perspective? And then, you know, after that number, you know, we talked about, you know, the potential to, as doing single stream, you know, what's our kind of our adoption rate? You know, we're getting people to do the single stream. I mean, does our carrier tell us how many households he's picking up from, or do they have any tracking mechanism, you know, for that?
Primarily just in the tonnages only. We have, you know, I think most residents are participating. Our garbage contractor will not pick up the garbage if it has recycling in it. So we are kind of seeing there's a level of enforcement at that stage. You know, initially the single stream, once we started that, we went from, you know, once a month with commingled and once a month paper and cardboard to single stream twice a month. Our numbers went up dramatically very quickly. At the expense somewhat of a recycling center, the numbers went down in the recycling center, and we could put something together for you to show how that's continuing. It's plateaued somewhat on single stream curbside, but it's probably better off to get you the accurate numbers and show you where we stand over the period
Well,
of time.
the only reason I ask is, I mean, at some point, you're talking about, again, this could be way down the road, this could be an absolutely foreign, crazy idea, right? But at some point, you're talking about here, potentially bringing the materials to Neptune, Tinton Falls, the Reclamation Center. My perspective is, if we're seeing this single stream recycling working, you know, dramatically here, you know, what stops us, if that's good, that trend continues to go, what stops us from the, you know, the municipal single stream 96-gallon containers and potentially collecting just single stream, not garbage, but just single stream recycling? You know, recycling is different than garbage. I don't think it makes any sense to have municipal garbage pick up for your salaries, contracts, and all that stuff, equipment. But depending on where this market is, and right now it's at a low, I mean, depending what our tonnage is and what we're paying for pickup versus, I mean, there's at some point, I think we're gonna have to examine that for future years and future budgetary purposes, if it's gonna be profitable. If it can be profitable, we can add DPW people to help service more of the town and pay for it off this or be profitable, that's a great thing.
Well, one
We've
thing-
got to figure that out.
We've been discussing with Wayne is that the quality of the material has to go up, and there are a lot of things that I didn't even know. I figured you have a metal hanger or a switch plate cover that's metal, you throw it in your single stream recycling, you know. What do they care if it's a tin can or a metal switch plate? But there's a lot of, you know, contamination with garbage. They have to spend more, it still gets recycled, but they have to spend more time now going through hand by hand.
Chinese don't want it, and they don't want they want better quality
Right,
material now.
and that affects the price, basically. They'll recycle anything that goes in there. And in New York City, Wayne tells me, you can throw anything in New York City recycling. That's just in their mix, in their calculation. But, you know, we want to make that the highest quality of recycling and with the least amount of contamination in there. That'll bring our numbers back up again to where it might, you know, it's a financial question, really, that we really have to look at and see. Plastic bags, for instance, I used to put my recycling in plastic bags and put it on the curb. clear plastic bags. Plastic bags are the worst thing that they come across in the process. So we have to prohibit that, people putting it in plastic bags.
Recycling?
Recycling.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to put something in Middletown Matters.
We're actually gonna work with Wayne to get a whole kind of campaign, education campaign here for recycling, because there's a lot of things, like I said, I didn't know it. A lot of, most people in town don't know you can't throw a lot of things in there. Wire hangers.
Right.
People, a lot of things people think they can just throw in there. We get toasters, we get TVs.
It doesn't occur to you.
Yeah, you figure it's all going to the recycling.
But it's also, we're
Master.
also, unfortunately, at this point, we're also not able to regulate it, because as a citizen, I can put as many cans out as I potentially want when my zone is collected every other Thursday. And, I'm not saying I do, but I'm saying that the likelihood of contamination or not caring that one piece of metal is better than the other isn't there when I have unlimited amounts of things that some companies come in and pick it up. Whereas if I had one container, I'm not saying I'm advocating one container, but if I had one container like, certain towns do, well, I better be pretty careful before I fill up and then I gotta wait and have it sitting around my house
Yeah.
now. So there's a lot. I think eventually we
Also
need to
having
look at
meetings.
this more holistically too.
Right.
People are just gonna get frustrated and throw out the garbage.
That'll happen too.
Well, that's,
You're gonna have
They won't take
people-
it though. They won't take the
well,
garbage.
that's the other
They
thing
won't
too.
take
I mean, the people, they can hide it in their garbage, I guess, and
Well,
get
they will in
it.
the private
And a
carrier.
lot does slip through, I'm sure, but, I mean, that's one thing to consider when you look at these numbers. In rigid plastics, we get $0 per ton. It's a wash. But for every ton that gets thrown, is recycled for free, for $1, for $0, we're saving $78, right, not going into the solid waste. So that's always gotta be in the back of your mind in the calculation too. In a couple of years, we're gonna be redoing our curbside, solid waste and recycling contracts.
Yeah, they're only halfway through now.
Seems like it was yesterday.
That's what I'm saying, we
Yeah,
have to
it
get a
does.
little bit more of a handle.
And this, right now, I put on this, the far right, I put $23.33 per ton for single street, and that's what we get now as a floor price when we take, our contractor takes it to Atlantic Coast. That number's gonna definitely go down. And we have a couple of years now to see if our numbers improve, or our quality improves, that maybe that number won't come down as much as we think. So again, Wayne's the resource for, you're asking me, but Wayne is really the resource for all this. He knows the business, he knows where the trends are going, he knows the
Why
best
don't you
methods that
maybe
work.
tell us what you see?
Oh, it's all going to be a disaster. It is just a function really of education. I mean, we've come across everything from bowling balls to, and my favorite at a single stream plant was we had a boat anchor. Now it's metal, but had that hit the plant and gone through the conveyor systems, you can imagine the damage. It's designed for tin cans, not for boat anchors. So it really becomes education. The trend right now, unfortunately, the markets are just bad. I've seen the markets bad 5 times in cycle. It's about as bad as it's gotten. Pricing is down. Ted mentioned the issue of oil. Oil pricing, as you know, is very low. That affects the value of plastics. The biggest issue right now, really, in your stream, and every stream, is contamination. And your second big, and people putting in the wrong materials. They think it's recyclable. They take a styrofoam cup or a container. They think they're recycling it. That's garbage. It's going to end up as garbage. And you get back billed $78 a ton for everything they pull out on a percentage basis.
Wow.
Can we put something in on the website? I mean, just a re-education, and just.
Yeah, Wayne has some, diagrams and symbols and things that'll really help people. I think the intentions are good for a lot of people. I know mine always were, where you want to recycle everything you can, but if it's just going to end up costing more money and not get recycled anyway, people will, find another way.
A little YouTube video on our website, link it to that, just show pictures and like, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
You
Yes,
can do a lot of
no.
different things.
Yeah, I mean,
And some things that,
Yes.
it might just be a matter of them taking it to Kane's Lane. The anchor,
There's some things you can take.
you
The
can take
anchor
the
you can
anchor at
take.
Kane's
you
Lane.
can. Actually want the anchor at Kane's Lane. It's
Right.
nice and heavy.
Yeah,
And then you get good value on scrap metal. Your biggest issue really is glass. That's your trend right now. Glass is an issue statewide. Most glass is not used in anything other than landfill cover. We try to recycle. It was always the hero, now it's the goat. And there's a big push statewide to, right now, among the recycling professionals, to take glass out of the list. for recycling, because we just don't have any glass plants in New Jersey. We just have 20 to 30 glass plants. Now there are 0. That's a big difference when you're trying to market something. You can only make so much fiberglass.
And so it weighs a lot.
It's very heavy and it weighs down the value of all of the other commodities. Glass is negative $30 a ton. That's great. So if plastic is worth 100, the glass is not worth 30. The glass is 10 times as much by weight. So you have a real issue. So we're working on that, and that's going to be a big issue. The whole education component, though, is the key. If your material is clean, I just finished another town in North Jersey. The market said they had the cleanest material they've ever seen. They're ready to go right to the manufacturing plant with their material. They're getting paid top dollar now for their material because it's clean, it's perfect stuff.
So what do they do though? Do they have their?
So they have dual stream, they don't do single, they never went to single stream, they waited. And what they've done is they are rejecting recycling, which goes to your concern, but then they reject the garbage. So if you take the recycling because they're frustrated in that town and then put it in the garbage, they wouldn't pick
But
it
do
up
they
at
have
all.
municipal pickup on both?
They have, no, only on the recycling.
Only on the recycling.
But their hauler is required to reject. And what they've done is taken the issue and said, if we get a call, we're not going to pick it up, scream all you want. You have to do it the right way. Not easy, and there have been some interesting phone calls. But the quality is remarkable. And that's the whole thing. You have to think of this as something you're making that has value. And if that's in your head, what you put out is very different.
How much greater is the value? You're talking like 2 times the value? Is it
Their value,
40% greater, 30%
they're
greater?
probably getting a 40% premium,
Wow, that's a lot,
That's
that's significant.
I would say, on their material.
That's through education.
I think education.
Just through education. Some of it's positive reinforcement, and some of it's not. But you'll get better, and you're doing better, and your Canes Lane facility, in fairness, is currently very nice. I mean, it does well, you get good material, the quality is pretty good there. But you have people there to educate the public when they come in. And that's the key. One-on-one education, if you can afford it, is always the most effective education possible.
To schools or something.
We talked about trying to set up some program with the schools to educate them, because we're not even sure how good the schools do it, recycling.
Yeah.
That was a big question last time. I don't
Yeah.
think it's ever been
Last
solved.
contract.
Yeah, it hasn't really been resolved, no.
That's easy. That's a quick inspection.
And Ted, just to clarify, the prices on the top chart are prices that do not include delivery.
The first two, the yellow and the grayish column do not include delivery. The blue column includes us delivering
Us
to
to have
them,
delivered.
Township delivery.
township delivery.
I guess that's my question.
Collection, if you're talking about collection,
No, the 65,223 from Atlantic Coast included is the town making the delivery.
town's making the delivery, yes.
And
The gray is what we have to pay.
And that expense is about $23,000 a year, that's reflected below, not in that number.
okay, got it.
That's $23,000 a year that people are already paying to do stuff. anyway.
Right, I mean, probably, $5,000 of that would be
New cost.
new cost.
Yeah. So that's really pretty good. These are headed in the right direction.
And that does help us with, enforcement a little bit too, when we're a little closer, our guys are a little closer to the process. They see what's coming off the truck, they dump it on the floor, they look at it, and they know what they see.
Yeah, I mean, issues.
There are a lot of people who are just lazy about it. It's just the way it is, and we have to get stricter about educating people, more,
But I think there are a lot of people that have
a little more forceful about it.
the best intentions, they want to recycle everything.
Who are the towns that, I'm sorry, that you said are good at getting that good quality?
I would tell you, most of Burlington County is a county-wide system, but they have a very different system. Burlington actually provides full collection for every town. Towns don't do anything on their own, the county pays for everything. You're unlikely to see that here.
Very unlikely.
But they have a very good system, but even in their system, they went to single stream and they have quadrupled their contamination rate in just 1 year. But they're going to education. They have an excellent system. Their system's about 8-9% contamination. Nutley, New Jersey, which is a very tiny town, Clifton, New Jersey, have excellent curbside programs. Clifton's probably the most severe still of programs in terms of what residents must do. going to your point, residents can be very creative when they don't want to do something. I've talked to residents and said, you spent 3 times as long burying your recycling in the garbage and layering it as it would take you to put it in the recycling. But it's this, I just am not doing it.
Give an example of what Clifton is requiring that residents do.
Well, Clifton is unique. Clifton requires residents to bring glass to their equivalent of Payne's Lane and put it in individual containers by color. They won't even pick it up curbside.
Yeah, we used to do that.
Yeah, everybody used to do that. That was the norm. That's just not done, to my knowledge in New Jersey, it's not done anywhere but in Clifton.
So if you have colored glass in your trash, the township won't pick it up.
The town will not pick it up. I mean, that's an extreme example, but they also get paid for their glass because the market will say, well, I don't have to do any work.
Premium
It's
stuff.
premium stuff. Is it worth it? Clifton says it is. I don't make their decisions for them. They're very happy with their program, and the residents love it. There's a line to get into their equivalent of Payne's Lane daily, which I'm amazed by, but that's a whole separate issue.
Very productive workshop.
If I could add one comment about the efforts of Wayne and Ted working with them on this compared to what was previously done is an extraordinary improvement from both the legal perspective and the substantive perspective of doing it the right way in business terms and legal terms, from getting more competitive bids and complete information out there. So want to throw that out there.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
very
a
much.
lot. Thanks, Ted.
Okay, we have public comments?
Township committee comments first?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Committee members that you bring up, do you have something to say this evening?
Nothing for this time.
Okay. Committee Fury, anything this evening?
1 second. Just the town, just not to forget, for those who are here tonight, the 9/11 ceremony is on Friday. It's Friday morning, 8:30. So another silent tribute for 9/11. So it's the only comment I have. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
I'll save my comments for our regular meeting. Actually, just really quick, I was at last week, the Habitat for Humanity events. Where was that?
Mrs. Hen.
Mrs.
Hen's
Hen.
house at Port Hope.
Mrs. Hen. It was an awesome event, and it felt like half the town was there. They rebuilt her home, and who was the football player?
Work done.
Dunn? Work?
Work done, yeah.
Work done. He was an incredible speaker. He had an incredible story to tell, and he donated all the furniture for the house, and it was just an incredibly moving thing to be at. But aside from that, I will give the rest of my comments for their next meeting.
I also am going to refrain from any comments tonight, so I'm going to open up the floor if there's anyone from the public who would like to make any comments. Okay, seeing no members of the public wishing to make any comments, I move to close public portion and adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Committeeman Fiore?
Yes.
Committeeman Sedambrino?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Masset? Steve?
Oh, yes. What?
Mayor Murray?
Yes.
Motion carries to adjourn.